CS50A, Week 4, Santa Rosa Junior College, creating your navigable prototype for your midterm project. For this week, you're going to create a draft prototype website that includes an index page and a habitat page. You're going to collect usable text and visual content for the animal website of your choosing. You may use the content that you collected in last week's assignment. You can reuse that as your index page. You will need to collect additional information for the habitat page, identifying the geographic location where your animal can be found, and you need to make sure that all of that information, each page has a unique image. Create a consistent navigation system using an unordered list at the top of each page. Define at least one link that connects to an embedded element with a matching ID attribute, such as href pound ID, and I'll show you how that works. Define a outbound email message with the mail to protocol. Define one absolute link to an outside website. Make sure that both of your pages have a unique title tag. So for example, the habitat page, whatever the animal is, the habitat of that animal. That's different than the index page, which is the general introductory information about the animal. Validate your pages using either the web developer toolbar or one of the W3C validators like this one that we see right over here. Include with your homework submission a screenshot of the validation confirmation. Now here is an example page, and we see on this example page I've got the code up top. Now CodePen doesn't want me to include the doc type and the HTML and the head information, but I do that for your convenience. And you see here's my title tag that's going to be unique for each page, and here's my unordered list. So after the body tag opens, the first thing I have is my links to my various web pages. Now you're only creating 2 of them today, but you will be creating 4 for your midterm project. So it would be a good idea for you to just complete this entire unordered list at this point, and you can reuse that on your other pages later. Then I've got my link to my habitat page, and we see this is the example of the ahref with an ID. So I'm saying ahref pound habitat. That means it's going to jump to another location on this page, right down here at this paragraph, where I say paragraph, that's the P tag, space, and the attribute I'm using is ID, and I'm giving it the name habitats. So if somebody clicks on this, it jumps down to that paragraph. So I want you to practice being able to do that, and you can see how that works in this example, and you refer back to that here where it says define at least one link that connects to an embedded element. Going back to after our unordered list and our link to an ID on the page, we have our IMG, and I'm pointing directly to the Wikipedia website in this case, and I'm making sure to use the alt tag. You always need to use an alt tag, otherwise you'll generate HTML validation errors and lose points. Then we see we have 2 paragraphs about the animal that I'm choosing for this example right over here. And down over here we have an example of a link to this is an absolute link, so we're linking to another site. So anytime you're using an absolute link, it's always going to start ahref equal quote HTTP or HTTPS. Okay. Finally, we have our mail to protocol down over here. Email the page author, right? And that's the ID that I have for my paragraph. But the text that shows up on the page down over here says send a message to the web page author, colon, and then I have an ahref. But instead of an HTTP address like a web page, it's ahref mail to. And this is where you would put your email address. question mark, subject equal the animal that you're choosing. And the other thing here is you need to make sure that when you use this mail to protocol, there's no spaces in this string after the question mark. So that always generates errors. If you have a space after your question mark, it's going to generate errors. Okay? So that's the example that I want you to follow. Now I'm going to demonstrate the submission step-by-step instructions. I'm going to create a subfolder inside of my CS50A root folder and name that Module 4. And then I'm going to open up Phoenix Code Editor. So let's take a look at that. I'm inside of my CS50A folder directory structure. CS50A is my root. And we see Module 2 and Module 3. I've already created Module 4, but one way that you can do it is you can also simply duplicate your folder and then rename that as Module 4, because you might decide to reuse the assets that you have inside of that folder. The index page, you can update that and have the navigation system added to that, and you might be using at least one of the same images for your index page, while you will need to collect another one for the habitat page. But that's an option that might save you a couple of minutes. Once I open up Phoenix Code Editor, we'll see I have my Module 4 folder showing up in my Files panel on the left-hand side of the screen. I've already created both my index and my habitat page, and I'm going to make sure that we include all of the elements that I already demonstrated in CodePen. So if I go to my index page, we see I've got my doc type, my HTML, my head, my meta character set, my unique title. This is the Arctic Fox for the home page, for the index page, and the Arctic Fox's habitat is my title for the habitat page. So those are unique. But my navigation system is exactly the same. Once I create it on my index page, I can simply copy it over to my, I didn't update the name of this, I will do that now. I simply copy that over to my habitat page. So I have that same unordered list in the same location on both pages, and that consistency is extremely important. Then I use my H1 tag to indicate the name of the page. I have an HR, I'm using an IMG SRC pointing to my images folder. Inside of that folder I have arcticfox.jpg. I'm using my alt tag, and in this case I'm also adding a width to make the image a little smaller. Now there's one other piece of information that you don't need to use quite yet, but you should become aware of. All images will be eventually put into the figure tag and utilize fig captions. Note, this is not required for this week, but this will be something you will be doing next week. So I want you to get a preview of how the image information is embedded inside of the figure tag and utilizes the fig caption tag to describe information about that picture. Then we have my first paragraph, information about the white fox, also known as the polar fox, also known as the Arctic fox. And then I'm using an H3 tag and have another paragraph showing up down here. Now, in this case, I added additional paragraphs just so you could see how if I wanted to link to an ID, I can link to any specific location in a paragraph. So if I wanted to say up over here where it says the Arctic fox, and I wanted to href that, the easiest way for me to do it is I like to copy and paste as much as possible. So I'll just copy this here. I'll put that inside of here. And I will move this over to here. And now I've got an ahref along with the words the Arctic fox that's nested inside of the H1. And now I want to just say pound, and I'll say fox Fox_info. So now I can use this and click on it to jump to someplace else on this page. So if I wanted to make this paragraph Fox info, I could say ID equal Fox_info. Okay, so now when I test this, I click down here. I'll preview it. I'll test it right up over here. So I clicked on that live preview bar at the top of the screen and chose Firefox. And when I click on the Arctic Fox, because of the fact that it says pound Fox info, it's going to jump to an ID called Fox info. So I click and it jumps down here. We don't know exactly where that is. I didn't specify anything except within a paragraph, but you can see that's how the jump works when you're using a local href by saying href equal Fox info, then I can jump to an ID with that same name like we see right over here, Fox info. So that's what causes that jump. You can also use that type of thing to jump to any ID, even on another page. So getting back to the instructions that we've got for this week's assignment. We've placed our files into Module 4, and we're going to click the black bar at the top of your page in the preview panel, and that chooses the web browser that you're using that supports the web developer toolbar, so you can preview the files locally. Now let me go back to these two pages real fast before we do that, and make sure that we see our page laid out the way we expect to see it. And we see this is my index page, as I already indicated. My habitat page has unique title tag, as I already showed you, and then it's got a unique image and it has information about that animal's habitat. Now at the bottom of the page on both of these pages, and again, this is information that can be on both pages, so you're simply copying and pasting it between the two pages, so you essentially have a top and bottom section of all of your pages that are the same, and it's the information in the middle that's unique to the content of that page. But we can see here on this index page and on the habitat page that I'm using a link, an absolute link, which is going to another website, and I'm using my mail to. And notice the question mark followed by subject. There can be no space in there. That's extremely important when you want to test your pages. So back to those instructions. We're going to click the black bar I said and select the web developer toolbar and validate the local HTML. So in the past, this would launch, this little lightning bolt would launch the preview window in a browser. That doesn't work like that anymore. Now you have to choose from the live preview up here and choose the browser you want to use. So I'm going to open this page in Firefox, and then I'm going to click my web developer toolbar, and I'm going to validate my local HTML. And we see there are no errors. I want to get a screenshot of that, and that is the next part of the assignment. So I get a screenshot of that validation confirmation screen, and then I need to compress the Module 4 folder as a zip file. Now it's extremely important that you do this the right way. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that you run into a situation where the folder is embedded in another folder. And that's what causes problems, so you don't see the index page when you click on the URL. So if I go here, I simply take that entire folder and I compress it. And now I have Module 4 zip. Going back to my assignment instructions, I then click to access the student server and go through that same process that you've been doing over the last couple of weeks. We access the student server, we select our class, we select our week, we put in our email address and our student ID and click submit. And at that point, you should see a green bar that says enrollment confirmed. Okay? Once you've uploaded those files and checked to make sure that they look the way you expect them to look. And the way you expect them to look is you want to be able to go to your home page and your habitat page, back and forth, super easy, and check that both of them validate with the web developer toolbar. Okay? So once you do that, you upload your screenshot for question 1, you enter the preview URL for your index page, and it's extremely important when you're entering this preview URL, you do what I showed you before, which is create an external link with that. So you select that text and you create an external link. So if this is my text and this is just me testing it locally, but if I put this text in here, I then have to reselect it, and I have to make sure that I create that link. If I don't do that, I'm going to lose a point because this makes it easier for the instructor to test the page by simply clicking on it. And that's what you need to do for week 4.